At a family dinner, my sister's fiancé tried to humiliate me while everyone laughed. What he didn't know was that I was his boss, and I was about to destroy him. I still remember the way the candlelight danced across my mother's fine china, casting long, dancing shadows on the walls as I watched my younger sister, Brooke, absolutely beaming at her fiancé. But as I sat there, a cold dread began to coil in my gut, a primal knowing that something truly awful was about to explode, threatening to shatter everything we held dear. I'd been on the road for work, traveling nonstop, and had only just gotten back to Chicago, so this was my very first time meeting Trevor in person. And honestly, it went sideways almost immediately. "So, Ashley," he started, leaning back in his chair with this smug confidence that just oozed, "still working that little admin job downtown?" The table went absolutely silent. My dad, Robert, nearly dropped his wine glass. My mom, Diane, cleared her throat, a soft, warning sound. Brooke even touched Trevor's arm, but he didn't even flinch. "I work in corporate management," I said, my voice deliberately even, cutting into my salmon like I was cutting through his arrogance. He actually laughed. Like a full-on, booming laugh that echoed in my parents' quiet suburban dining room. "Corporate management? Is that what they're calling receptionist these days?" Brooke's face went crimson. "Trevor, that's not, I'm just teasing," he interrupted, flashing a smile that was probably the same one that had charmed my sister from the start. "But seriously, Ash, when are you going to get a real career? You're what, 32 now? Brooke's 28, and she's already made junior partner at her firm. My sister, bless her heart, worked at a small law practice in the city. And yeah, she'd done incredibly well for herself, and I was genuinely so proud of her. But Trevor's comparison, the way he framed it, it stung. It stung in a way he probably couldn't understand. Or maybe, just maybe, he understood exactly what he was doing. "Some of us," I said quietly, "took different paths." "Different paths," he snorted. "Is that what we're calling failure now?" My mother gasped. "Trevor, please." No, I don't mean it harshly." He held up his hands, a mock surrender. "I just think Ashley needs someone to give her a reality check. You've been at the same company for what, 8 years? No husband, no kids, barely making ends meet from what Brooke tells me. And that comment? That last one? It hit harder than anything else. A sickening wave of betrayal washed over me. Brooke, my little sister, had been discussing my struggles with him. My messy divorce 5 years ago, the apartment I downsized to, the careful budgeting I did every single month. "I'm doing fine," I managed to say, but my voice sounded hollow even to my own ears. Trevor leaned forward, his expression shifting to what he probably thought looked sympathetic. "Look, I'm in finance. I know people. Maybe I could make some calls, see if anyone needs an assistant or something. Entry level, but it would be better than whatever dead-end gig you're stuck in now." The room suddenly felt suffocatingly warm. I could see my father's jaw working, his hands clenched tight on the table. My mother looked like she might burst into tears, but Brooke, my sweet, ambitious little sister, just looked embarrassed. "Embarrassed of me? That's very kind," I heard myself say, hating how small my voice sounded, how utterly pathetic it felt. He settled back then, completely oblivious. Trevor clapped his hands together, a loud, jarring sound. "Great. I'll reach out to my contacts tomorrow. Can't have my future sister-in-law struggling, right? What would people think?" The rest of the dinner passed in a blur. I smiled when expected, nodded at appropriate times, and honestly, I died a little inside with each pitying glance from my parents. When dessert was served, barely an hour after this nightmare had begun, Trevor regaled us with stories of his latest promotion at Hawthorne and Associates, one of Chicago's premier financial consulting firms. "I'm basically running the entire acquisitions department now," he boasted, accepting a generous slice of my mother's famous apple pie. "The partners rely on me for everything. Honestly, I don't know how that place functioned before I arrived." I excused myself early, claiming a pounding headache. Brooke walked me to the door, her face a complicated mess I couldn't quite decipher. "He didn't mean anything by it," she said softly. "Trevor just has a blunt way of speaking sometimes. He called me a failure, Brooke. He was trying to help." Her voice took on a defensive edge that made my heart sink. "You have to admit, Ashley, you've been stuck in the same position forever. Maybe he has a point. I just stared at her. My little sister. The girl I'd helped raise after our parents almost divorced when she was 12. The teenager I'd tutored through calculus. The college student whose tuition I'd helped pay when Dad's business hit a rough patch. The woman I'd stood beside through her first heartbreak, her law school graduation, her first court case. Maybe he does, I finally said, and then I left. The drive back to my apartment in Lincoln Park took 40 minutes. I sat in my car outside the building for another 20, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles ached, replaying every humiliating, gut-wrenching moment. Trevor's smug face. My mother's near tears. My father's impotent, simmering anger. And Brooke's embarrassment. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Don't let him get to you, sweetheart. We love you. Then one from Dad. That boy is an ass. You're doing great, kiddo. Nothing from Brooke. I climbed the stairs to my third-floor apartment, kicked off my heels, and just collapsed onto my desk chair. The screensaver on my laptop showed a photo from last year's company retreat in Napa Valley, me with my executive team, toasting our record-breaking quarter. My title at Whitman Consulting Group wasn't corporate management. It was Chief Operating Officer. I had built my career over 12 grueling years of 80-hour weeks, missed holidays, and countless sacrifices that my family knew absolutely nothing about. I had chosen to downsize my apartment not because I was struggling, but because I was saving aggressively for early retirement. I drove a sensible Honda instead of a luxury car because I found the whole status game exhausting. And I kept all of this private because I'd learned the hard way that money changes relationships. After my divorce from a man who'd only wanted my growing salary, I decided to keep my professional success entirely separate from my personal life. My family knew I worked at Whitman. They just didn't know I was the second highest-ranking executive in a company that pulled in $500 million annually. I opened my secure work email and searched for Hawthorne and Associates. My assistant, Priya, had sent me briefing documents 3 weeks ago. Whitman was acquiring Hawthorne in a deal that had been kept highly confidential until all the pieces were in place. The merger would be announced next month, and I would oversee the entire integration process. As COO, I had final say on all personnel decisions during the transition. I scrolled through the Hawthorne employee roster, and there he was, Trevor Matt, Senior Analyst, Acquisitions Department. Not a director. Not even a manager. A senior analyst who reported to a manager, who reported to a director, who reported to a vice president, who would soon report to me. The man who'd spent the past hour telling my family how incredibly important he was held a mid-level position in a company of 300 employees. I should have felt immense satisfaction. Instead, I felt hollow. This was my sister's fiancé, the man she planned to marry in 8 months, the father of her future children. Destroying him would destroy her happiness. But as I sat there in my quiet apartment, remembering the look on Brooke's face, that embarrassment, that disappointment, something hardened inside me. She'd chosen him. She'd shared my private struggles with him. She'd defended his cruelty. I opened a new document and began typing. Subject: Hawthorne Acquisition, Personnel Review Protocol. The next morning, I arrived at Whitman's downtown headquarters at 6:30, earlier than usual. My corner office on the 42nd floor offered a panoramic view of Lake Michigan, the water gray and choppy under October clouds. I made coffee in my private kitchen and settled in for what I knew would be a very long day. At 8 o'clock, my executive assistant knocked. Miss Brennan, I have the complete personnel files you requested on Trevor Matt from Hawthorne already. That was fast. Priya smiled. I sent the request last night to their HR. They were very cooperative once they knew it was coming from your office. Miss Brennan, he said, extending his hand. Trevor Matt. Thank you so much for taking this meeting. I stayed seated, forcing him to stand there with his hand outstretched. After an awkward beat, he lowered it. Have a seat, Mr. Matt. He settled into one of the chairs facing my desk, his eyes darting around the office. I could literally see him trying to reconcile something in his mind. I have to say, he began, when my manager told me the COO wanted to meet with me personally, I was honored. I know you're overseeing the merger, And I wanted to tell you how excited I am about the opportunities this will create. Excited, I repeated, my voice flat. Absolutely. Hawthorne is a great company, but Whitman is the gold standard. Working here has always been a dream of mine. He leaned forward, his pitch mode fully engaged. I've been studying Whitman's acquisition strategy for years. I actually wrote my MBA thesis on your approach to market consolidation. Fascinating. I know I'm currently in an analyst role, but I think my skills would be better utilized in a more strategic capacity. Director level, perhaps. I've been running Hawthorne's acquisitions department. And you've been running it? Well, effectively, my director is more of a figurehead. I do all the real work. I made a note on the pad in front of me. Trevor watched my pen move across the paper, his expression eager. Tell me about your background, Mr. Matt. He launched into a rehearsed spiel about his education, a state school MBA, and his 5 years at Hawthorne. He described deals he'd led that I knew he'd merely provided analytical support for. He name-dropped clients he'd secured, who had actually been brought in by partners he'd never even met. Impressive, I said when he finished. And outside of work, what do you value? Family, he answered immediately. I'm actually getting married next summer. My fiancé is a lawyer. Brilliant woman. We're building a life together. Congratulations. What does she do? She's at a small firm, handling mostly civil litigation. Nothing like this level, of course. He gestured around my office. But she's good at what she does. The casual dismissal of Brooke's accomplishments shouldn't have surprised me, but it did. My sister had won 2 major cases this year alone. You sound like you value her career, I observed. Of course. Though, I expect once we have kids, she'll probably scale back. You know how it is. Someone has to prioritize the family. Do I? He blinked, seeming to realize his error. I just meant in traditional family structures. I didn't mean to assume. What about the rest of her family? Are you close with them? Her parents are great. Salt of the earth types. Her sister is. He paused, and I watched carefully. Her sister is sweet, but she's been struggling. Dead-end job, going nowhere. I've actually been trying to help her out, make some connections for her. How generous of you. It's the least I can do. I mean, she's family. Or she will be. He flashed that infuriating smile again. Between you and me, I think she's a little jealous of Brooke's success. There's definitely some tension there. My hand tightened on my pen. Jealous. It's understandable. Brooke has everything going for her, and her sister is just stuck. It's sad, really. I let the silence stretch. Trevor shifted in his seat, his confidence finally beginning to waver under my steady gaze. Mr. Matt, I'll be direct. The merger means redundancies. We're going to have to make difficult decisions about personnel. His face paled slightly. Of course. But someone with my track record. Your track record shows consistent work in an analytical capacity. Nothing exceptional, but competent. Competent? I've exceeded every metric. You've met expectations for your pay grade. I pulled up his file on my monitor. Annual reviews describe you as adequate, satisfactory, and meets requirements. Your last raise was a standard cost of living. No bonuses, no special recognition. That's because Hawthorne doesn't appreciate. What Whitman appreciates is humility, teamwork, and integrity. I closed the file. We'll be in touch about your position. Wait. Trevor stood up abruptly. I need this job. I'm getting married. We just put an offer on a house in Evanston. You can't just. I haven't made any decisions yet. But I'll be honest with you, Mr. Matt. I don't like what I see here. His jaw clenched. For a moment, that charming facade cracked, and I saw something ugly underneath. The same look he'd worn when he called me a failure at dinner. Who even are you? He demanded. Some executive who's never done real work, just climbed the ladder by what, Mr. Matt? He caught himself, but it was too late. Nothing. I apologize. That was unprofessional. Get out of my office. He left, and I sat there shaking. Not from fear or anger, but from the sheer weight of what I was about to do. I picked up my phone and called Priya. I need complete employment records for Trevor Matt at Hawthorne. Everything. Performance reviews, client feedback, expense reports, email audits. And Priya, I need them today. Consider it done. The investigation took 3 days. What my team uncovered went far beyond simple embellishment. Trevor had been systematically overstating his role in deals, taking credit for junior analysts' work, and billing personal expenses to client accounts. Nothing egregious enough to trigger Hawthorne's internal compliance, small amounts, clever categorization, but it painted a very clear picture of someone cutting corners and inflating his own importance. The most damning evidence came from client interviews. 2 specifically mentioned that Trevor had been difficult to work with, condescending to their staff, and had made inappropriate comments about female colleagues. 1 had actually requested he be removed from their account. I compiled everything into a meticulous report and scheduled a meeting with Gerald Whitman himself, our CEO and founder. "This is the Hawthorne analyst you wanted reviewed?" Gerald said, scanning the documents. He was 73, sharp as ever, with zero tolerance for dishonesty. Trevor Matt. "Yes, sir. Why the special attention?" I hesitated. "Personal connection. He's engaged to my sister." Gerald's eyebrows rose. "I see. And does your sister know about this?" "Not yet." He studied me for a long moment. "Ashley, I've known you since you started here as a junior analyst 12 years ago. You're one of the most ethical people I've ever worked with. So, I'm going to ask you directly, is this professional or personal?" "Both," I admitted. "He humiliated me in front of my family, but I didn't fabricate any of this. The evidence speaks for itself." Gerald returned his attention to the report. "It certainly does. The expense irregularities alone would be grounds for termination. The client complaints are worse." He closed the folder. "What do you recommend?" "Termination immediately, before the merger is finalized. With cause, so he doesn't get severance." "That's harsh. He's dishonest. He takes credit for others' work. He's damaged client relationships. And he's doing it all while claiming to run a department he barely contributes to." I met Gerald's eyes. "If he weren't marrying my sister, would you question this decision?" "No," he admitted. "I'd already have fired him." "Are you prepared for the fallout?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "But I know what's right." "Then we're in agreement." Gerald signed off on the termination order. "HR will handle it Monday morning." It was Friday afternoon. I had the entire weekend to prepare for the fallout. I left work early and drove to my parents' house. Dad was in his workshop, building a bookshelf for Brooke's new place. He looked surprised to see me. "Everything okay, kiddo? I need to tell you something about my job." I explained everything. My actual title, my salary, the lifestyle choices I'd made to keep it private. He listened without interrupting, his expression shifting from confusion to understanding, to something like awe. "Why didn't you tell us?" he asked finally. "I wanted to be loved for myself, not for what I could provide. After my ex, that bastard married you for your money." Dad's voice was hard. I should have seen it. Nobody did. It made me cautious about sharing too much. I took a breath. "Monday morning, Trevor is going to be fired. Not because of what he said at dinner, but because he's been dishonest at work. There's been a full investigation, but Dad, Brooke is going to think that you did it out of spite." "Yes." He pulled me into a hug, sawdust and all. "Then we faced that together. Mom took it harder when we told her that evening. She worried about Brooke, about the wedding, about family harmony. But she also asked why I hadn't trusted them with the truth. 'We're proud of you no matter what,' she said, tears streaming. 'Admin job or COO. You're our daughter.' I know, Mom. I'm sorry. Don't apologize. Just promise me you'll try to help Brooke through this. Whatever Trevor's done, she loves him." I promised, though I had no idea how to keep that promise. The weekend crawled by. I tried to distract myself with work, with cleaning my apartment, with anything that would keep my mind occupied. Sunday evening, I barely slept. Trevor was terminated at 9 a.m. Monday morning. By noon, after he'd cleared out his desk and left the building, my phone rang. Brooke's name flashed on the screen. "How could you?" Her voice was ragged from crying. "He just called me from his car, devastated. They fired him, Ashley, right before our wedding. Right after he put down earnest money on our house." "Brooke, this is because of dinner, isn't it? Because he hurt your feelings? You're so petty that you got him fired." "It's not. That's not what happened." "Then explain it to me," she screamed. Explain how my sister who I've loved and supported my whole life, could destroy my future. I tried to tell her about the investigation, the evidence, the fact that I hadn't even known Trevor worked for a company we were acquiring until that dinner. But she wasn't listening. She hung up on me twice. The third time, she didn't answer at all. 3 days later, an envelope arrived at my office. Inside was an invitation to Brooke's wedding, scheduled for 8 months from now, next June, with a handwritten note. You're no longer welcome. Don't contact me again. I called my parents. Mom was crying. Dad was angry. At Trevor, at Brooke, at the whole impossible situation. She won't listen to reason, he said. She's convinced you orchestrated this out of jealousy. Maybe I did, I whispered. Maybe I could have just transferred him to a different department. No. Dad's voice was firm. You did your job. You held someone accountable. The fact that he was dating your sister doesn't change what he did. But it changed everything else. The wedding was still 8 months away, but those months stretched before me like a prison sentence. I marked the date on my calendar, and just tried to move forward. Work consumed me. The merger, the integration, the hundreds of decisions that needed to be made. I threw myself into 18-hour days, finding solace in spreadsheets and strategy sessions. Trevor found a new job quickly, at a smaller firm, with a 40% pay cut. Through my parents, I heard that he'd convinced Brooke the only reason Whitman had fired him was because I'd fabricated evidence. She believed him. Or she wanted to believe him, which amounted to the same thing. Thanksgiving was cancelled. My parents invited me over separately from Brooke, and I declined, not wanting them to have to choose. I spent the holiday alone in my apartment, eating Thai takeout and wondering if I'd made a catastrophic mistake. Christmas came and went the same way. My parents tried to mediate, but Brooke refused to be in the same room with me. She sent back every gift I attempted to send, every letter I tried to write. Trevor had successfully positioned himself as the victim, and me as the villain who'd tried to ruin his life out of petty sibling rivalry. In February, 3 months after the dinner that had changed everything, I got a call from an unknown number. Miss Brennan, this is Patricia Chen from Miller & Associates Law. My blood ran cold. Miller & Associates was where Brooke worked. I'm calling about Trevor Matt, Patricia continued. I understand you were involved in his termination from Hawthorne Associates. I'm not going to discuss personnel matters. I'm not asking you to. I'm calling because your sister, Brooke Brennan, has come to me with some concerns about Mr. Matt. She's asked me to look into his employment history, and I was hoping you might be willing to share the report that led to his termination. I sat down hard in my desk chair. Brooke asked you to investigate him? She did. Apparently, some financial discrepancies have come to light. Missing deposits, bills paid from their joint account that he claimed were business expenses. She's starting to question his version of events. I can't just hand over confidential documents. I understand, but if you could point me in the right direction, help me understand what questions to ask his former employer. I helped her, not out of revenge anymore, but out of a desperate hope that maybe somehow this nightmare could finally end. 3 weeks later, Brooke called me. Her voice was small, broken. Can we meet? We met at a coffee shop in Lincoln Park, neutral territory. She looked terrible, thin, pale, with dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't hide. Trevor has been lying to me, she said without preamble, about everything. His role at Hawthorne, his salary, his prospects, the house we were supposed to buy. He never had financing approval. The down payment came from my savings. Money he said he paid back from his bonus. She laughed bitterly. There was no bonus. There never was. Brooke. I found emails. He'd been telling people at Hawthorne that he basically ran the company, taking credit for work he didn't do. One of his former colleagues reached out to warn me after hearing we were still together. She said he'd done the same thing with his previous girlfriend. Built up this fantasy version of himself until reality caught up. She started crying then, and instinctively, I reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. I called you horrible things, she whispered. I believed him when he said you were jealous, that you'd sabotaged him because you couldn't stand to see me happy. Ashley, I'm so sorry. It's okay. It's not okay. You're my sister. I should have trusted you. I should have asked questions instead of just accepting his version of everything. She wiped her eyes. Patricia showed me the report. What he did at Hawthorne. Ashley, you had to fire him. There wasn't a choice. There's always a choice. I could have handled it differently. How? By ignoring fraud? By letting him keep getting away with it? She shook her head. You did the right thing. I just couldn't see it because I didn't want to. We sat there for a long time, both of us crying, both of us trying to find our way back to each other. I broke off the engagement, Brooke said eventually. 2 weeks ago. He didn't take it well. Did he hurt you? No, but he showed me who he really was. All that charm disappeared. He called me stupid for throwing away our future. Said I'd regret it when I was 40 and alone. She smiled sadly. Funny thing is, I'd rather be 40 and alone than spend one more day with someone who thinks so little of me. You're the strongest person I know, I said. I'm really not. A strong person would have seen through him earlier. Would have trusted her sister. You loved him. There's no shame in that. Maybe. She took a shaky breath. Ashley, there's something I need to tell you about dinner that night. You don't have to. I do. When Trevor was talking about your job, about your life, I knew it bothered you. I could see it on your face. But I didn't stop him because... She paused, struggling. Because part of me liked being the successful one. The daughter with everything figured out. My whole life, you were the one who had it together. You helped pay for my college. You were there for every crisis. And I guess I wanted Mom and Dad to look at me the way they looked at you. So when Trevor made you look small, I let him. The confession hung between us, raw and painful. I didn't defend you because I liked being the favorite for once. And Ashley, I'm so deeply ashamed of that. I didn't have words. What she was admitting was terrible, but it was also honest in a way that made me love her more, not less. We've both made mistakes, I finally said. I should have been honest with you about my career, with the whole family. I let you think I was struggling when I wasn't, and that created this weird dynamic where you felt like you had to compete with a version of me that didn't even exist. Why did you hide it? I told her about my ex-husband, about the fear that money would change how people saw me. But I was wrong. I created distance by keeping secrets. I made you feel like you couldn't trust me with the truth about your relationship because I wasn't being truthful about mine. No, Brooke said firmly. That's not on you. I knew something was off with Trevor. There were red flags everywhere. I just didn't want to see them. We talked for 3 hours, digging through all the hurt and misunderstanding. When we finally left, we hugged in the parking lot, holding on to each other like we were both drowning. Can we start over? Brooke asked. We don't have to start over, I said. We just have to move forward. The next Sunday, I went to my parents' house for dinner. Brooke was already there, helping Mom in the kitchen. Dad pulled me aside in the hallway. Your sister told us everything, he said, about Trevor, about what really happened. And Ashley, your mother, and I want you to know how proud we are of you. Not because you're a COO, though that's pretty impressive, but because you had the integrity to do what was right, even when it cost you everything. I almost lost Brooke. But you didn't. That's what matters. Dinner was healing in a way I hadn't expected. We laughed. We shared stories. And for the first time in months, everything felt normal. Brooke apologized to our parents for the things she'd said, for choosing Trevor over her family. Don't apologize for being in love, Mom said gently. Just promise us you'll be more careful next time. There won't be a next time for a while, Brooke assured her. I need to figure out who I am without someone else defining me. After dinner, Brooke and I walked around the neighborhood like we used to when we were kids. The spring air was crisp, the early evening light golden. Can I ask you something, she said. At dinner that night, when Trevor was saying all those things. Did you already know you were going to be overseeing his company? No. I found out later that night. But you could have told him right then. You could have humiliated him in front of everyone the way he humiliated you. I thought about it, I admitted. But it wouldn't have changed anything. He would have just made excuses or accused me of lying. And I didn't want to make that moment about me. It was supposed to be about you and your engagement. She stopped walking. I don't deserve you as a sister. Stop. We're in this together, okay? No more competing. No more secrets. Just us. Just us, she repeated, and we kept walking. 6 months after the engagement ended, Brooke got a promotion at her firm. Junior partner at 29, the youngest in the company's history. She called me first, squealing with excitement. I did it, Ashley. Me on my own. I threw her a party at my apartment, the first time she'd seen where I actually lived. She walked in and immediately started laughing. What? I asked, confused. This is it? This is the apartment I felt sorry for you about. She gestured around. Ashley, this place is amazing. It's small, but it's Lincoln Park. The finishes are gorgeous. I thought you were living in some sad studio in a bad neighborhood. I downsized on purpose, I explained. Early retirement plan. You're insane, but I love you. The party was small, just family and a few of Brooke's close friends. Mom and Dad were there, beaming with pride. They both adjusted to knowing the truth about my career, and it had brought us closer in unexpected ways. No more pretense, no more careful avoidance of certain topics. Late in the evening, after most people had left, Brooke found me on the balcony. I saw Trevor last week, she said. He was at a bar downtown with some guys from his new firm. My stomach clenched. How did that go? He tried to talk to me. Said he'd made mistakes, but he wanted another chance. She leaned against the railing. I told him no. And you know what? It felt amazing. I'm proud of you. He asked about you, actually. Wanted to know if we'd reconciled. What did you tell him? That my sister is the COO of a major consulting firm and one of the smartest people I know, and that he never stood a chance against her. She grinned. He went pale. I think it finally clicked for him. Brooke, don't let me have this moment. Her expression turned serious. Ashley, I need you to know something. What you did, firing Trevor, you saved me. Maybe not immediately, but eventually. If I had married him, I'd have spent years trying to prop up his ego while he tore down mine. You gave me a chance to see who he really was before it was too late. I didn't do it to save you. I know. You did it because it was right. But it saved me anyway. We stood there in comfortable silence, watching the city lights reflect off Lake Michigan. Two sisters who'd almost lost each other, who'd found their way back through honesty and pain and love. Hey, Ashley, Brooke said softly. Thank you. For what? For being the kind of person who does the right thing, even when it's hard. For teaching me that integrity matters more than appearances. For loving me enough to let me hate you for a while. I put my arm around her shoulders. That's what big sisters do. No, she corrected. That's what you do. And it's why I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be more like you. Looking back, I can't say I have no regrets. I wish I'd been honest with my family from the start. I wish Brooke hadn't had to learn such a painful lesson. I wish Trevor had been a better man. If only so my sister could have had the happiness she'd been seeking. But I don't regret doing my job. I don't regret holding someone accountable for dishonesty. And I don't regret the way it forced all of us, me, Brooke, our parents, to finally be real with each other. Trevor's career continued its downward trajectory. He bounced between firms, never staying anywhere long enough to move up. The last I heard, he'd left Chicago entirely, claiming the market was too competitive. Part of me felt sorry for him, but mostly I felt relieved that he was no longer my problem. Brooke thrived. She became one of the most sought-after attorneys in her specialty, won cases that made headlines, and built a reputation for being both brilliant and ethical. She dated occasionally, but focused primarily on her career and herself, healing from the relationship that had nearly derailed her life. As for me, I stayed at Whitman Consulting Group. Gerald retired 3 years later and recommended me as his successor. At 35, I became the youngest CEO in the company's history. The board announcement made the business news, and suddenly my family's secret was public knowledge. Mom framed the article. Dad built me a shadow box for my new office with a headline, "Local woman breaks glass ceiling." Brooke sent me flowers with a card that read, "Always knew you were going places. Next time, just tell me where." Sometimes late at night, in my office, I still think about that dinner. The way Trevor's words had made me feel small and worthless. The way my own sister had let it happen. The choice I'd made afterward to investigate, to act, to potentially destroy the relationship that mattered most to me. People often ask if I'd do it differently. The answer is complicated. I would have been honest with my family sooner. I would have tried harder to talk to Brooke before the situation exploded. But the core decision to hold Trevor accountable, regardless of personal cost, that I wouldn't change. Because sometimes doing the right thing means losing everything. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, losing everything teaches you what truly matters. For me, it was the sister who found her way back to me, stronger and wiser. The parents who learned to see me as I really was. The integrity that no job title or salary could buy. Trevor taught me something important that night at dinner. Humiliation is only powerful if you accept it. He tried to make me feel worthless. And for a moment, he'd succeeded. But in the end, my worth wasn't determined by his opinion or my family's perception. It was determined by my own actions, my own choices, my own willingness to stand by what I knew was right. Brooke and I have dinner together every Sunday now, alternating between our apartments. We talk about work, about life, about the future we're both building. She's dating someone new, a kind, quiet engineer who thinks she hung the moon. I'm genuinely happy for her. As for me, I'm still single, still focused on my career, still saving aggressively for that early retirement. But I'm also more open, more present, more willing to let people see all of me instead of carefully curated pieces. The story doesn't end with triumph or revenge. It ends with reconciliation, with growth, with two sisters who found each other again after almost losing everything. And honestly, that's better than any revenge could ever be. Because Trevor lost his job, his fiancé, and his carefully constructed image of success. But I gained something far more valuable. My sister, my family, and the certainty that I'm the kind of person who can look herself in the mirror every morning. In the end, that dinner table confrontation changed all of our lives. Trevor got destroyed, but not by me. By his own dishonesty, his own inflated ego, his own inability to be genuine. I was just the catalyst. The person who happened to be in a position to expose what was already there. And my sister? She got free. Free from a man who would have spent their entire marriage making her feel like her accomplishments didn't matter. Free from a relationship built on lies and status seeking. Free to become the woman she was always meant to be. Sometimes I wonder if Trevor understands what really happened. If he realizes that his humiliation of me wasn't the beginning of his downfall. It was just the moment his house of cards became visible to everyone else. If he knows that I didn't destroy him out of spite, but simply allowed the truth to come to light. Probably not. People like Trevor rarely take responsibility for their own failures. But that's not my concern anymore. My concern is the woman sitting across from me at Sunday dinner, laughing at something Dad just said, reaching for Mom's hand, glancing over at me with a smile that says, "We're okay. We're finally okay." That's the real ending to this story. Not revenge, not destruction, but healing. Not triumph, but truth. And honestly, I'll take that over any dramatic confrontation any day.